Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you joined us today to stay curious. Today, we're going to do a little reprise about unidentified anomalous phenomenon. And Marty Winkle, my co-producer, we've got one behind us here. What is this anomalous figure in space up there? Well, I think many of you know who that is, and we're going to be celebrating that late astronaut birthday here in just a minute. But we're going to reprise a little bit our visit with Ken Bertarami yesterday. You want to see yesterday's show about his take on the task force that was set up by NASA to investigate unidentified anomalous phenomenon, formerly UFOs. And this was from a gentleman, Ken Bertarami, has worked at Area 51, where the top secret things happened concerning Roswell. And when I had dinner with him, he's a personal friend of mine, so I've known this for a long time. You were convinced that there's aliens when you talk to Ken in the circles that he can without going to jail for violating his non-disclosure agreements that he signed. But this colonel of the Air Force, and 5 times he tried to be an astronaut and ended up training astronauts, is a no BS kind of a guy and a great guy. And you really get a sense that we are not alone. We're going to look at a couple things that I had over dinner with Ken, reasoning-wise, about how we are so fixed in our own little world, our paradigm here, that it's hard to look outside. And I'll just tease you by staying curious with this thought. Why can't we exceed the speed of light? All right. That is a major stumbling block to money physics things. And we're going to do a little maybe reasoning lesson here involving exoplanets and their discovery that opened up my mind a little bit to think you got to think outside the box. So, Marty, want to say thank you for your volunteer work here. And we're looking at our, I figured it up the other day. If we keep going the way we are, Marty, we're going to hit 1,000 shows in November, because we're into 830 some programs right now, and it's thanks to support of some places and people along the way the last 4 years, including Hyatt Place. And if you're coming to the Space Coast, we encourage you to stay at Hyatt Place, our home away from home. Very nice facility about 4 miles down the road, and stopped in there today to get a cup of coffee. And Dana got promoted. Thank you, Dana, for all that you do. She's an awesome person. Robert is retiring, semi-retiring, and going back to his family in the New York State area. So this is right at the 405, we call it, the entrance into Kennedy Space Center, and a great place to stay. And they have supported us in many ways by having our Shuttle Fest events there and a couple other events there. We'll be looking forward to Dana's promotion and all the goodness that that'll bring our way. Our partners are important to us. And there's a view that you get from the Hyatt Place, looking at a rocket launch, courtesy of Mark Usiak. Looking to the east there, you're looking over Kennedy Space Center. And it's the second closest hotel to the rocket launches there. And well, we want to wish a happy 58th birthday to this man. And don't tell me I didn't pull up his yeah, I did, Marty. This is Stan Love. Stan Love's birthday's today. He's born in San Diego, California, but grew up in Eugene, Oregon. I didn't bring my notes. Where's my notes on him, Marty? I got my folder's right down there, sir, if you might. There he is. He did a bunch of spacewalks, the white sheet of paper there. Yeah. I flipped it over there. I'm bad about keeping things organized for this show. Stanley Glenn Love was born in San Diego, California, June 8, 1965, but he considers Eugene, Oregon to be his hometown. Happy 58 there, Stan. He graduated from Winston Churchill High School in Oregon. There's a cool picture of him, that astronaut patch, 25 mock patch there is worth about $400 or $500 when you can get one, because only astronauts get them. Well, Love, let's see, his experience is STS-122. He did 2 spacewalks, 15 hours. He was at the late end of the program. And Marty's holding up the sign that don't touch any keys. Okay, so we're experiencing our glitches again, as we do at some of the beginning of every show. But that'll give me time for to talk about Mr. Stan Love here. Bachelor of degree in physics from Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California. Studied astronomy at the University of Washington in Seattle. So he's got a master's and doctor's of philosophy. And he was in space in 2008, the 24th shuttle mission to visit the International Space Station. And they took up the Columbus laboratory from ESA. So this is also a very interesting guy that he investigated the polar environment as an analog for future space missions as an Arctic search for meteorites expedition. So in 2012, 2005, and 2012, he went to Antarctica in testing equipment that people would use to simulate Mars and how cold it is on Mars and so forth. He and fellow astronaut Ed Lu co-invented the gravity tractor, a novel method to controllably modify the orbits of hazardous asteroids. And boy, we need that on there. So hope that Stan Love is having a great 58th birthday, born June 8th, 1965 in San Diego. But like some astronauts, San Diego's going to claim him, but he really grew up in Eugene, Oregon in there. So we're experiencing a couple little hiccups here today on looking at Stan Love's picture there. Marty will give me the all clear. We have not solved this little gremlin, but thank you all for staying with us, because once we solve it, it's all smooth sailing there. We're seeing glitches on our screen that you can't see anywhere else. Marty, we need Bruce to see that maybe. But go ahead, Marty.
I did a video of it yesterday, so Bruce saw it.
Oh, okay.
But what I've just noticed yesterday and today, this occurred at 4 minutes and 57 seconds into the show. So it looks like it might be a Streamlabs issue.
4 minutes. Okay, each time's about 5 minutes into it, huh?
Well, 4 minutes and 57 seconds exactly.
Exactly. Oh. Well, we will note that. We're using Streamlabs here, and believe you me, this has been quite a journey for Marty and I. I was researching some things yesterday, Marty, and pulled up our 2020 show where we did it on my phone. All right, and you're holding the phone up while I'm behind the desk holding up the birthday of David Scott. That was quite funny in there. So, well, we're going to talk here about UFOs here in a minute, and after a couple more birthdays, and talk about the planet Venus, which is that bright star in the sky. I want you to realize that Venus is so bright because it's got clouds around it. But if it didn't have those clouds, it'd be the most popular, second most popular object in the sky next to the moon, because if you could see its surface has got a lot of cracks on it, and but not many meteorites, because they don't reach the surface because of the thick 30-mile atmosphere of Venus that makes it so bright in the western sky tonight. And because it's 900 degrees on the surface because of that greenhouse effect, and it is an active surface of volcanoes, so it's replenishing itself, so we don't see craters when we do radar images of the surface like many Venetian probes have from the U.S. as well as Russia's landed 4 probes on Venus there. So to talk a little bit about what this panel that was convened May 31st, a week ago. I watched all 4 hours of it. Ken Verderami watched all 4 hours of it. Ken's objection to the 16 panel member was that they clearly have made up their mind about the phenomenon, and they repeated several times it does not have any extraterrestrial origins. Ken, I think, believes they have extraterrestrial origins, okay? So Marty's giving me the thumb up. Wonder if it took just as long to clear up, Marty, as it did to. No, I hit you. Nothing happened. All right, there we go. All right, we're going to wish also a happy birthday to Bruce McCandless, and Bruce is our UAP here behind me. All right, doing the first human spacewalk untethered. Okay, Bruce McCandless unfortunately died in 2017 at age 80. He was born June 8th. Let me get Bruce's picture up there. Oh, no, not again.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce was born. Where's he born? Where was he born? I don't have that on here. Doggone it. A third generation naval aviator. He was selected in the astronaut group of 9. Okay, group 5, 19 of them. And I forget where McCandless was born. I don't have it on my notes here.
I'll look it up. I think
Yeah, Marty's going to look it up.
I think we're good again.
Okay. McCandless, as Marty's going to tell me where he was born, I think Marty did one of the bravest things ever, all right? And there he is on the manned maneuvering unit that they don't use anymore, but they did some spacewalks after this flight of STS-41B, very famous flight. The first untethered spacewalk in February 1984. All right, but he was Boston, Massachusetts. All right, and as I go forward there with Bruce, let's go there. There he is. Like I said, we lost him. I believe his daughter is very active in creating. She was for a while gloves for spacewalkers, as is Jerry Ross's daughter, involved in her career perfecting space gloves. So we don't talk about many deceased astronauts, but this is one iconic one that I don't want to miss. There he is, Bruce McCandless, born in Boston, June 8th, 1937, and will forever be known just like Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Well, this is the first person to just trust that little backpack to get him back safely. Just think, if a thruster had failed and just start spinning him around, it'd be all goodbye. But reading books about this, Marty, Bruce McCandless said that he definitely overtrained for this. They really, there were some delays in this, and he actually trained for about 3 years for this one moment. So he wasn't scared, and he had a good time doing it. Well, I was talking in our little delay there that, thank you for sitting through, that if you could take away the clouds of Venus that make it so bright in the western sky, you'd see the surface like this, which is striated layers of where lava has crossed the surface, and there is no tectonic plates, but things welling up from this planet the size of Earth, about 7,900 miles across. The Earth is about that also. There's a little under 8,000. And but Russia's landed 2 probes on there. And just want you to know, when you look up there, 4 times Russia landed on there, and the surface looks orangish. In fact, there's no darkness on Venus because the big, thick cloud layer scatters the light around the backside of it. All right. And Venus also rotates backwards, as if it's been completely flipped over 180 degrees. We'll talk more about Venus on a stargazing backyard astronomy day. But just want you to be aware of that big bright star in the sky. It is not a star, but it's the planet Venus, and it's sometimes mistaken as a UFO, because when Venus gets low in the sky about 9 o'clock tonight and through the trees, and sometimes as you're driving, it looks like it's coming right at you. But this is the surface of Venus. Well, to reprise a little bit about the UFOs that we had Ken Verderami on yesterday talking about, isn't it something, Marty, that 67 years later, we're trying to figure it out again. This is the Saturday Evening Post cover by Paul Calley, father of our good friend Chris Calley, space artist. And I'm going to talk to Chris about his dad's UFOs here. It's very, very, what I want to call Art Nouveau, or even a little abstract in my mind. But a tremendous cover on the Post there in 1966. And then 67 years later, this is a famous encounter of a UFO taken from a jet fighter. We are now calling them Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. And that's part of Ken's rub, is they're trying to change the terminology of it, just like, Marty, we used to have problems, but now we have issues. Okay? So we used to have UFOs, and now we have UAPs. They're the same doggone thing, the same phenomenon, that now they're saying we have to understand what they are. And out of 800 observations this panel talked about in the recent years, 2% of them fall under the UAP. But Ken didn't like that they're using the classic scientific method to explain what they believe to be nothing more than a new or novel natural phenomenon, all right? And here's where we're going to do a little exercise of thinking here in a minute, is the classic scientific method sometimes doesn't work in some of the greatest discoveries of humanity. It is always an outside-the-box experiment or test or theory that finally is proven to be the reality. So, and Ken, like me, doesn't like that they have discounted. Oh, here's Ken. I wanted to show you our good man there. That they've discounted 70 years of research by one Project Blue Book, and the astronomer that headed that, who's Project Blue Book, and I'm trying to think of his name, and I just had a blank. I even met him a couple of times with a nice goatee. Anyway, discounting all the MUFON people, some of the people that have been serious about investigating UFOs for decades, all right? And that data, they say, is too sporadic. It doesn't have the right parameters, the right authentication, all kinds of detailed NASA stuff that it doesn't have, that NASA thinks they can apply. Unsystematic, uncalibrated, ill-suited data is what they call 70 years of researching UFOs the best that we can. And that is Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was the main promoter of investigating UFOs on his own in a Project Blue Book that the Air Force was kind of underwriting with this astronomer from, I believe he was from Northwestern University. So, what we're going to look at, and I just put this slide up here because these are the 4 most credible UFO incidents that when I talked with Ken over dinner, and we've had many meals together, he's an astronomy buddy of mine, but sometimes he's in the mood to really talk about this, and other times he's just, he's in his non-disclosure agreement. I could be taken away by Men in Black if I tell you. He misspelled Roswell on there, it's Roswell. But I'm convinced that he saw an alien body at Roswell, all right? And then these other incidences, the Westall incident, the Rendlesham Forest incident, and the 1996 Brazil incident, were all seen by hundreds of people. And I need to look those up. I'm not that familiar with a couple of those there. So I put that up there for you to screen grab it and do some research, because Ken is pretty much convinced me that extraterrestrials are real. And I keep wanting to say they were part of an ancient civilization on Earth 500,000 years ago, maybe, that flourished and destroyed itself. And these are the leftovers of that civilization many generations later that don't want to mess with us because we're so primitive. Look at Rome. Rome 2,000 years ago was the epitome of civilization, and it's in ruins, around the modern Rome. So that's my idea about it. And but Ken has 3 golden rules to your debunkers, all right, out there. And he's kind of classifying this 16-panel group that includes astronaut Scott Kelly and some really high-esteemed people in the world of science and journalism even. 1, don't bother me with the facts. My mind's made up, all right? That's, don't let the facts get in the way of your opinion. What the public doesn't know, I'm not going to tell them, all right? And there might be some reasons that they're not telling us about that aliens exist. That would certainly have a big connotation to the religions of the world, all right, and the dogmas of those type of beliefs. And three, if you can't attack the data, well, attack the people sending it, okay? So the data of 70 years of UFO researchers doing the best they can, is it good enough? Because you're wackos. Everybody knows that a UFO researcher, is got one screw loose, so to speak, which I don't believe you do, and I don't believe you are. And I get enamored with ancient aliens. Don't you sometimes, Marty? Wondering how in the world did they transport those 60-ton rocks and make rectangles out of them that you can't even put a sheet of paper between. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really blows my mind. And this always takes some sort of, for these things to be built, like we're talking about, some sort of temple that was built where it shouldn't be, takes some physics and things that we don't understand, like levitation. And look at how many things we don't understand today. All right. So let's do a little reasoning. Marty, though, great time for you to just comment about, if you would, sir, about, we've had Ken on many times, Ken Verderami, and I know he's one of your favorite guests. Why?
Well, I mean, I guess to some degree, I believe there are UFOs. I believe there are aliens also out there. And Ken, he's very credible. He's very adamant. He really believes in what he's saying. And it's hard not to accept what he's saying. And then again, it's hard. I can't even express it. But just to know what he knows that he can't tell us, is extremely interesting.
It is. Yeah. It really is, Marty, because he has a glib way of just kind of looking at you and just, hey, I've seen it, or and kind of, if you could read his mind. But he's very cool about what he's done. He worked at Area 51. He was also, Marty, he knows more about the X-37B space plane that was called the X-40 than anyone, he says, on Earth. And I can't wait for them to launch the next one, because we'll get him on a program, he said, and he can tell us about what he can tell us about the nation's X-37B space plane that was one of his projects 20-some years ago in the Air Force. Quite a fascinating guy. He's a very good guy, very good amateur astronomer, and a very good speaker. And go back tomorrow and watch that show there. So thank you for your comments, Marty. As we look at the lightsaber here, we want to talk a little bit about the speed of light and thinking outside the box and getting away from the dogmas of science that 400 years ago, in 1621, if I said in public, Marty, that the sun goes around, that the earth goes around the sun, I could be murdered, or I could be taken before the Pope like Galileo was and said, you better recant that or we're going to cut your tongue out, because everybody knows that everything goes around the earth, including the sun and the planets. Folks, that's just 400 years ago, 4 centuries, all right? And it was men like Copernicus and then later Kepler and, of course, the great Galileo that finally convinced the world that, hey, everything goes around the sun, okay, including the moon goes around the earth. And this was a dogma that existed for 1,250 years by an astronomer named Ptolemy, Ptolemy, Ptolemy. He said that and had an elaborate system that everything was going around the earth. Well, that's not the case, all right? Some people thought the earth was flat. Those of you that aren't convinced the earth is flat, okay, show me where I can join up the Flat Mars Society or the Flat Venus Society, okay? We're pretty sure that these planets are round when we look at them through telescopes and have surfaces. But so the reasoning that Ken was kind of telling me and hinting around, because he said, Mark, can anything go faster than the speed of light? Well, no. Our physics says that. Our physics says that. Whose physics? The human mind of physics. The best we can do. And yes, there are some barriers to go faster than the speed of light, we think, all right? But when you get into sci-fi, like your Star Trek and Star Wars stuff, are wormholes possible? Can things go from one space and time in our universe and jump time and space and so forth? Well, there's theoretical things that say we can, all right? But one of the dogmas that I think Ken wishes could be broke is that we can't go faster than the speed of light. And that and an analogy that he used that I'm going to use next is it took us 15 years to discover the first planet going around the nearest star, all right? And they discovered that in the constellation Pegasus in 1995, but since 1980, astronomers have been specifically looking for other planets going around other stars, and they couldn't figure out why they couldn't find them. They don't see them. I'm going to show you in a minute how they detect this very scientific thing. But the reason why they couldn't find them, Marty, was they were using conventional methods of observation. And it took an astronomer named Michael Moyer and Didier Quelez of the University of Geneva to think outside the box and turn their instrumentation in a different direction, sort of flip it up 180 degrees, how they were trying to detect things. And they discovered not only the first planet going around a star, but it ends up being just like most of the planets going around most of the stars we've discovered, something we don't understand, and it's nothing like our solar system. The big difference I'm talking about was this first planet called Pegasus 51b was twice the size of Jupiter and as close to its star as the orbit of Mercury. All right, our first planet. It was so close to its star, it should have blown off its outer layers from the solar radiation, but it hadn't. And I'm going to show you a chart in a minute that most of the planetary systems we find, none of them are like us. With the rocky small bodies in the first planets and the giant gaseous planets at the end, no. A lot of planet systems have these giant Jupiters, they call them, giant hot Jupiters, as the first parts of their solar systems. Why? So this was discovered by thinking outside the box and thinking that, hey, we can go faster than the speed of light, all right? And I know Ken is convinced that these aliens that I think he's seen and so smugly kind of talks about can go faster than the speed of light. Well, with that set up, there is a poster about the first exoplanet, 51 Pegasus b, all right, followed by, and these crazy names come from astronomers cataloging of how we think of objects in the sky like a road map. Everything has a grid road map to it, so this might be at the 51 level of declination or something in their charts in there. Pegasus b usually means the second brightest star of there. In fact, so important was this breakthrough of discovery of Pegasus 3 to astronomical research that it was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics, okay, for its discovery. And in October 6, 1995. So now, since October 6, 1995, we have discovered almost 10,000 planets orbiting the closest 1,000 stars, all right? Not even 1,000 stars. Now, they've actually confirmed 5,000 of those almost 10,000. They want to get them from multiple sources and from multiple times of year. That's how they get their data, is by the Earth being on one side of our orbit, and then on the other side of the orbit, they try to get the same data. And, you know, that's like a parallax flipping back and forth. But here is, in a technical way, what the Webb telescope, of course, that's a breakthrough. These are the transmission spectrum of an object passing in front of its star, and they see a trace of elements. They see through the atmosphere, and this is the scientific way. We do not physically see these objects, but the Webb has discovered several, or confirmed several objects by their globe orbiting the star. Now, just like the Hubble telescope revolutionized astronomy 30 years ago, the Webb is doing the same thing. This is nothing different than exceeding the speed of light, all right? Remember, Eric Perlman is a professional photographer at Florida Institute of Technology, about 40 miles from where I'm sitting. He's been on our show and talking about the Webb. And the first thing he said was the Webb telescope is going to revolutionize what we understand about astrophysics and probably biological physics of the biology that could exist on surfaces of other planets nearby. They're always looking for the Earth-like planets. All right. Again, they're always looking for Earth-like planets where there's Earth. Well, how about the non-Earth-like planets? Could life exist on a silica-based planet instead of carbon? We think it's feasible, and so on and so forth. We got to look outside the box. Well, with this data, this is how they find these, and this is what Pegasus 51b looks like in an artist's conception as compared to Jupiter. It's a lot bigger than Jupiter there, all right, and the star that it's orbiting is a little bit bigger than our sun. All right, this star is 51 Pegasus, and this is planet B in there. But where it's at in its solar orbit, and here is what blows people's minds. Here is the Webb telescope actually imaging four different planets orbiting that star. It's first imaging of planets orbiting a star that you see the physical property of them. Exciting times ahead in the next decade of the Webb telescope. Well, at the bottom is our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and then Mars. Okay, and then you got the asteroid belt, and then you've got Jupiter, gigantic planets. All right, and these are about the scale here at the bottom. But at the top is a system in a star system called TRAPPIST, and this is a very famous one because the star is in the middle, and then you've got 2, 4, 6, 8 planets orbiting, all of them within the orbit of Mars. This is laid on top of and inside. They're all inside the orbit of Mercury. I mean, see how that inner solar system goes out enlarged 25 times. They have got 8 planets orbiting within 20 million miles of its star. Now, this isn't as hot a star as our sun, but this is incredible. And several of them live in what they call the Goldilocks zone, where it's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right, that Goldilocks zone. And their liquid water can exist. And we know where there's water, there's probably going to be life. Look at our ocean of water here. So, well, think about some of these things as I blow your mind with this many planets being discovered around the stars out there, all different sizes and shapes. Yep, we think some of them have rings around them. All right. We think that there's several star systems that have planets orbiting 2 stars. All right, which is quite an orbital phenomenon, having planets orbiting a 2-star system. And they even think that there's a couple planets that are just orbiting dead rocky bodies on there. And another thing that we got to think of is where there's planets, of course, there's going to be moons orbiting some of those planets, as we have over 200 moons in our solar system orbiting our 8 planets, and Pluto has 2 moons orbiting it. So, well, we hope that everybody enjoyed today's Stay Curious. Dave Stange, thank you for watching. And God bless you and your friend. Dave had a loss in his immediate friends there, and we're thinking about you, buddy. Gary Gerald, Tom Usiak, Doug Forrest, Bill Whiting, Robert Law, Christopher Mick, and Hazel Banks, all diamond viewers of our program here, great fans of our museum. Thank you. Litza Della Porta and Cynthia Rossi, thank you for staying curious today. As I leave you with, again, another look back at 6 decades later, and we still don't know what to even call these things is let us know what they are. So, but keep looking up. That's one thing I say. Marty, thank you for enduring another Streamlabs situation here. We're doing our best to overcome this, and Marty's keeping track of it. So when we are a little bit slow in the morning, I'm slow at the beginning. We'll come back strong at the end for you. So, well, tomorrow, Marty, is Future Friday. So we're going to look on Stay Curious at something in the future, all right, that's going to affect you, maybe in the future, maybe now, but it's going to be something exciting about the rocket renaissance going on here on our Florida Space Coast. So until then, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.